I was still standing by the grave when it happened. The pastor's voice had gone silent, the people had begun to drift toward their cars, and the heavy, suffocating silence of the cemetery wrapped around me like a shroud. My husband, Richard, had just been lowered into the ground. My Richard, my partner of 55 years, was gone. I should have been grieving quietly, but something else jolted me out of my sorrow. My cell phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, I thought it was one of my grandchildren trying to check on me. But when I glanced at the screen, the number was hidden. Unknown. The phone rang again. And again. The sharp vibration in my palm seemed louder than the clattering sound of dirt being shoveled on the coffin. I pressed ignore once, but the call came back instantly. My son, Daniel, gave me a strange look as he helped his own daughter into their car. "Mom, you okay?" he asked. I nodded weakly, but my throat was too tight to speak. I stepped away, holding the phone to my ear as the call came again. My hands trembled. Finally, I answered. A man's voice, hoarse, urgent, and low, spilled through the receiver. "Don't sleep at home tonight, or else something worse will happen to you and your children." I froze. My legs wobbled like they couldn't hold me anymore. "Who is this?" I croaked, my voice breaking, the chill of the autumn air slicing through my coat. But the line went dead. The silence was louder than the voice. My chest pounded, and suddenly the tears I had been holding back for my husband's burial mixed with a new kind of fear. A dread I couldn't explain. I stood there, alone among the graves, clutching the phone to my chest, knowing my life, and my children's lives, had just shifted into something darker. And I had no idea what was coming. My name is Margaret Holloway. I am an 84-year-old widow, a retired schoolteacher, a blonde grandma with hair that time has turned white but my children still tease me about, saying I once looked like Marilyn Monroe's long-lost cousin. I raised 3 children with Richard in our white clapboard house in upstate New York. I loved him. God knows I did. But Richard wasn't an easy man to love. He worked in investments, business associates, stocks, and shares that I barely understood. He had partners, men with pressed suits and smiles that never quite reached their eyes. I stayed out of it. I was the wife who baked apple pies for neighborhood kids, who graded essays late into the night, who made sure my husband's shirts were ironed crisp every morning. And now, standing at his grave, I wondered if all of that was about to mean nothing. Because of one phone call. The ride home from the cemetery was hushed. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, drove while I sat in the passenger seat, hands clutched together like a schoolgirl caught cheating. My son Daniel sat in the back with his daughter. Melissa tried to make small talk, but my head kept replaying the voice in my ear. "Don't sleep at home tonight." I touched my chest where my cross pendant rested. Should I tell them? No, not yet. Maybe it was just some cruel prank. Funerals sometimes attracted odd people, strangers who had no business being there. But why me? Why that warning? At the house, casseroles and condolence flowers filled the counters. My neighbors whispered polite words, but their eyes always lingered a little longer than usual, scanning me like I was some fragile glass. I excused myself to the upstairs bedroom, closing the door with a sigh. I pressed my phone to my ear again, scrolling through the call log. Unknown number. No trace. For a long moment, I sat there in silence. My husband's side of the bed was perfectly made, untouched. That's when it hit me. Sleeping here tonight would mean obeying or disobeying that voice. If I stayed, maybe nothing would happen. But what if something did? I remembered my husband's business associates. They were at the funeral. 3 men in particular. Tall, sharp suits, sharp smiles, sharp eyes. They barely looked at me, as though I was just another obstacle. I had seen them at the house before. They always brought documents for Richard to sign. Once, I overheard them in the study, voices raised, something about shares and takeovers. Richard had brushed me off when I asked later. Margaret, you wouldn't understand, he had said. It's just business. But now my gut told me, whatever this phone call was about, it had to do with that business. And with his death, the night crept in. My children eventually left, promising to check on me the next day. I was alone. The silence in the house was deafening. Every tick of the grandfather clock echoed like thunder. I sat in Richard's leather armchair, staring at the fireplace, debating. The voice said not to sleep here. But where would I go? To Daniel's house? To a hotel? I heard a car outside. Headlights swept across the window. I peeked through the curtain. An unfamiliar black sedan sat parked across the street. Two silhouettes inside. They didn't move. They didn't knock. They just sat there. My breath caught in my throat. Could it be them? I dialed Daniel's number, but stopped halfway. If I told him, he would think grief had made me paranoid. I could already hear his voice. Mom, you need rest. Don't overthink. But what if it wasn't paranoia? The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. My heart thumped. I answered with shaking hands. You didn't listen, the same low voice growled. Get out now. They're coming. Click. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed my coat and purse, heart racing. The house suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I stepped onto the porch. The car across the street revved its engine, headlights glaring into my eyes. I backed into the house, fumbling with the lock, hands slippery with sweat. Suddenly, the back door creaked. I wasn't alone. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming. Hello. My voice was small, shaky. Silence. Then, the faint crunch of footsteps on the kitchen tile. My whole body went cold. The phone slipped from my hand onto the carpet, buzzing again, the unknown caller flashing on the screen. But this time, I couldn't move. Because whoever was in my house was already too close. And I could see the shadow stretch across the hallway wall. The shadow slid across the hallway wall like spilled ink. I staggered backward until my calves touched the console table. My fingers found the heavy brass candlestick that Richard's mother had given us on our first Christmas. I wrapped my hand around it and tried to breathe. In, out, quiet. Don't let your teeth chatter, Margaret. Hello. I whispered again, even though I didn't want an answer. A floorboard answered for me, soft, slow pressure from the kitchen, then another step toward the study. I could hear a glove brushing the door frame. Whoever it was wasn't rushing. They moved like they belonged here. My phone buzzed on the carpet by my foot. Unknown number. I crouched, snatched it up, and tapped to answer, pressing the screen tight to my ear. Don't talk, the same urgent voice said. You're not alone. Step to the porch if you can, and don't turn on the lights. 2 men outside. 1 inside. They're looking for paper, something signed. I swallowed. My throat was sand. Who are you? I'm trying to help you. Listen to me. That study door. Does it lock? Yes. Then go now. Lock it. There's a window in there? Crawl out and go to a neighbor. Do not sleep in that house. I'll call you back. The line clicked dead. I stared down the hall toward the study. The shadow moved again. Whoever was there had his back to me, studying the framed family photos like a guest at a party. I didn't think. I just moved, bare feet on old rug, candlestick raised, shoulders tight like a spring. He turned his head at the last second. A mask covered his nose and mouth. He had one of those black knit caps you see in winter. We were suddenly only 3 steps apart. He lifted a hand, not to strike, but to warn. The tiniest shake of his head. For a wild second, I recognized the gesture. Don't scream. I didn't. I jabbed the candlestick toward his chest. He hopped back, not clumsy, not startled, trained. He glanced past me down the hall, then back at my hands. He didn't threaten me. He moved sideways toward the study like a rules-following dancer, slow, deliberate, not wanting a fight with an 84-year-old woman holding a family heirloom. "Stay there," he said, voice low. "No one gets hurt if you stay there." I said the only thing I could think to say. "This is my house. That's why I don't want to break anything," he murmured, which made my skin crawl. He slipped into the study and pulled the door. I lunged, reached the knob first, and slammed it shut with all the strength left in my bones. The old brass key was still in the lock on my side, habit from decades ago, when our kids were small and we didn't want them to get into Richard's files. I twisted it hard. Metal kissed metal. The lock clicked. His fist hit the other side of the door once. Not hard. Testing. "Ma'am," he said through the wood, almost polite. "This will go quicker if you don't make it difficult. Get out of my house." I found my voice from some hidden part of me, the teacher who once sent 3 boys to the principal's office with a raised eyebrow and a pointed finger. Another step in the hallway. Different weight, different shoes. Someone else had come in from the back. 2 sets of feet now. They talked in low tones. I caught only a word. "Binder." A cold needle slid through my spine. The window in the study was old but workable. Richard always said he'd replace the sash and never did. I shuffled to it, slid the bottom pane up an inch, 2, then 3. It groaned. I froze. The men paused, listening. I pushed harder. Night air spilled in, sharp, leaf-scented, with a hint of rain. Far across the street, the black sedan idled, a patient animal. I threw one leg over the sill, then the other, less graceful than I wanted, my coat catching on the wood. I tumbled into the bushes like laundry falling off the line and rolled into the flower bed. Dirt in my mouth. The smell of the earth. The old peony roots I'd nursed for years scratched my arms. I didn't look back. I crouched and scurried along the foundation toward the side gate, using the dark to hide my age. I could hear the men inside now, drawers opening, paper rustling, a whisper of frustration. My neighbors, Ruth and Tom, lived 2 houses down. Ruth was my age. Tom had been a county deputy 30 years ago. I kept low, kept moving, pressed to the fence, out of the light of the street lamp. At Ruth's back door, I knocked fast, 3 small taps the way we'd always done when we borrowed sugar in winter. The porch light snapped on. A shape behind the glass. "It's me," I hissed. "Maggie." The door opened. Ruth's bright blue eyes went wide. "Oh, honey." She pulled me inside and locked the door before I could finish spilling out what happened. She led me to a chair at her kitchen table like I was 6 again, sat me down, and put both of her warm hands over mine. I hadn't realized how cold my fingers were until they touched hers. "What on earth?" "Don't call the house," I whispered. "They're in there. 2. Maybe 3. Tom appeared in the threshold in his old flannel robe, hair sticking up, eyes suddenly sharp like steel coming out of a sheath. He lifted the blind with 2 fingers and peered toward my yard. "Car across the street," he muttered. "No plates on the front. New York lets you go with back plates only. Cowards." Ruth's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm calling 911. I almost said no. I almost said the police would think this was grief and fear and the way an empty house plays tricks at night. But Ruth had already dialed. She gave the dispatcher our address and the situation. "Widow, intruders, funeral today." Her voice didn't shake. I realized then that my entire body was shaking. "I told you," she said across the line, eyeing me. "She's 84. She's not imagining things. We need someone here now." While we waited, Tom found the old baseball bat he kept from his coaching days. "You stay put," he told me. If they come this way, we'll let the deputies deal with them. I nodded and gulped a sip of water, the glass trembling against my teeth. In the dark reflection of the window, I saw my face, pale, hair a cloud around my head, eyes too big, like a child who'd seen something bad on TV. But the person in the glass was me. Not helpless. Not quite yet. Blue and red lights washed over the street in a few long minutes. The black sedan did not pull away fast. It rolled down the street like it owned it. A cruiser slid in behind it and lit it up. Two deputies stepped out. The sedan sped up a little, then turned the corner and was gone. An officer knocked at Ruth's door. "Mrs. Holloway?" "Yes," I said, standing so fast my knee cracked. "I'm Deputy Lewis. We got a call about intruders. You said they might still be inside." He flicked his eyes toward my backyard. "We have one unit out front. Another on the way." "They were looking for a binder," I said, surprising myself with the detail. He frowned. "A binder? What kind of binder?" "My husband's. He passed away. He had business." The word felt sour in my mouth. He scanned my face for what felt like a full minute, then nodded. "All right. We'll clear the house first." I followed him and Tom down the sidewalk until he made me stop. "Ma'am, please wait here." In 2 minutes, maybe 5, time was strange, the deputies swept through my rooms. Lights came on, then off, then on again. One deputy yelled, "Clear." A window shade flapped. Deputy Lewis returned. "No one's inside now." Back door was unlocked. "Any sign of forced entry earlier?" "The study window," I said. "But I opened that." He put his pen to his pad. "Anything missing that you can see?" I stared across at the glow of my kitchen. My casserole dishes. My tea towels with little cherries embroidered on them. The everyday things looked too normal. "I don't know yet. We'll do a walk-through with you," he said, voice softer. "We also pulled a partial on a tire from the street. Maybe we'll get lucky with cameras." "Do you have a ring cam?" No, Richard didn't like gadgets that beeped. He was old-fashioned except for money. "Okay, let's go look." Inside my house, the air felt wrong. Not cold. Not warm. Just used. Like someone had breathed the same space I had, and spoiled it. We checked the rooms one by one. Nothing obvious. Living room. Tidy. Kitchen, a cabinet door left an inch open like a mouth. Upstairs, the guest room closet door stood ajar. The study was exactly as I left it, except for papers shuffled and one photograph tilted. Richard and me on Cape Cod, years ago, wind in our hair, him pretending to catch a gull with his hat. My eyes snagged on the frame. Something behind it flashed dull silver, then disappeared. "Mrs. Holloway?" Deputy Lewis said. "You all right?" "Yes." My voice sounded far away. I picked up the picture, flipped it. On the cardboard backing, along the bottom, someone had taped a tiny key. Old. Brass. Taped a long time ago. The deputy leaned in. "Is that yours?" "I think so," I said, but my stomach said, "No, you forgot it existed." He watched me slide the key into my coat pocket as if memorizing that motion forever. "We'll file a report," he said. "I think you should stay with a neighbor tonight. We'll patrol the block." Ruth cut in. "She's staying with us." Tom nodded, bat still in his hand like a promise. When the deputies left, the house settled again, a tired creature relieved not to be examined anymore. Ruth helped me gather a small bag, pajamas, toothbrush, my Bible, my cross. I stood in the study one last time and let my eyes trace everything. The desk, the old leather chair, the shelves where Richard used to keep reference books, and those dreadful thick binders that only men in suits love. Binder. I locked the study door again. Habit. And then, in my brain, a tiny drawer opened. A memory. 27 days before Richard died, he came into our kitchen late at night. He didn't see me first. I'd been having tea at the table, worrying about his cough. He didn't cough. He pressed a small piece of paper under the bread box and whispered, "Just in case." "Just in case what?" I asked, and he jumped like a boy caught sneaking in past curfew. He smiled, too quickly. "Nothing. I'm being dramatic." He took the paper back and put it in his wallet. He kissed my forehead and said, "You make the best tea." I could see his face as if he were still there. The way his eyes had looked through me, past me, toward some thought that shut me out. Now, back in Ruth's house, washed and hugged and tucked on her pull-out couch under one of her crocheted afghans, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. The phone on the side table sat face up. I couldn't make myself turn it off. It buzzed at 2:11 a.m. Unknown number. I slid my thumb across the screen. "Hello. You did good," the voice said. "You got out. Who are you?" I asked again, very quietly. "Someone who worked around your husband's business. I can't say my name on this line. They're listening." His voice wasn't hoarse now. Younger than I'd thought. Tired. "They want your husband's voting agreement. They want a binder that proves he placed his shares in a trust with you as trustee. If they get you to sign a revised consent tonight, it all shifts to them on Monday morning when the market opens." "I don't understand any of that," I said, honest and small. "I taught history to ninth graders. I know about Lincoln and the Erie Canal and why we shouldn't forget our past. I don't know about votes." "You don't need to know the terms," he said. "You need to know this. If someone asks you to sign anything, you say no. Not until you see an attorney who isn't theirs." "Did my husband tell you to call me?" Silence. "Then, yes. We made a plan in case." "In case what?" "In case they did to him what they were planning to do." The words landed like falling stones, heavy, one after the other. I closed my eyes. Tears rose and refused to fall. "So he knew." "He suspected." The voice corrected. "He tried to outmaneuver them. He was smart. But they were faster." I pictured the three men at the funeral. The way they stood together but not with us, like a separate species. "What do you want me to do?" "Tomorrow morning, no, later this morning, go to the bank on Ashford. Ask for a safe deposit box under the name Redwood." He spelled it out slowly. "Take whatever is inside and leave. Don't stay. Don't read it there. Don't sign anything. And don't tell your son where you're going." The last instruction struck me as odd. My son? Daniel. Why not? A long exhale on the line. "I'll explain when I meet you. Noon. There's a motel off Route 9 with a broken neon sign that says, M-Tel. Park by the laundry room. I'll show you where to go." "And Mrs. Holloway," his voice softened, "I'm sorry for your husband." The line went dead again. I set the phone down and stared at it. "Don't tell Daniel." The words buzzed in my head like a mosquito that wouldn't stop. Daniel changed the batteries in my smoke detectors every spring. He cleaned my gutters when the leaves fell. Why on earth would I not tell him? Sleep dragged me down at last, thin and unsatisfying, like drinking water through a paper straw. At sunrise, I asked Ruth for a ride. I didn't tell her about the bank. I said I needed to check my house in the daylight, that I wanted to see if anything felt different. It was true. It was also not all of the truth. She squeezed my shoulder. "We'll do it together." We did. In the morning light, my house looked like itself again. Dust motes danced in the beams. Innocent. The study smelled like leather and ink and the faint, sweet scent of the cedar pencil box I'd given Richard years ago. Alone for a moment while Ruth made coffee in my kitchen, I closed the study door and slid the brass key from my pocket. There was a little tin lockbox inside the bottom drawer that had always annoyed me. It rattled when I opened the drawer too fast. I'd never asked for the key. I'd never needed it. The tiny key fit. The lock turned with a chirp. Inside, a small envelope addressed to me in Richard's fast, slanted hand, M. My entire body went still. I peeled it open. A folded note. A plain USB drive taped to the paper. 3 lines in Richard's sharp, careful letters. If you are reading this, I'm sorry. If something happens, do not sign anything from Halvorsen or Pike. Find Evan Cole. He's the only one who tried to stop them. The passphrase is our wedding date backward without slashes. Trust Melissa. Do not trust Daniel. The room moved. No, my knees did. They buckled. I caught the edge of the desk and sat, the note trembling in my hand like a leaf in wind. Do not trust Daniel. My boy who held my purse at church when I needed to tie my shoe. My boy who painted the picket fence when his father's back went out. My boy who cried real, shaking tears when his own daughter was born, who hugged me in the hospital hallway and said, "Mom, you did this for me once. Now I know how big that is." A car door slammed outside. Ruth called from the kitchen. "Maggie, someone's here." Footsteps on my porch. Slow. Familiar weight. A key slid into my front door lock and turned. "Mom." Daniel's voice, easy as Sunday morning, floated down the hall. "You home? Thought I'd bring you breakfast." My heart beat out a new rhythm, unfamiliar and loud. I looked at the note again. I looked at the door. The brass key was still in the study lock. The USB drive stuck to the paper like a secret that burned to be told. "Mom." Daniel called again, closer now, steps headed straight for the study. "You in here? We need to talk about Dad's partners. They called me early. Said there's some paperwork you should sign to make things simple." I told them I'd help. His hand touched the study doorknob. I slipped the letter into my sweater sleeve and stood as quietly as I could, my mind racing, my heart begging my face to look like a mother's face and not a trapped animal's. The knob twisted. The latch clicked. The door began to open. The door opened slowly, the hinges groaning like they wanted to betray me. Daniel's face appeared in the crack. "My son." My little boy who used to run through the yard chasing fireflies with a jar, the boy who once held my hand so tightly on his first day of kindergarten. Now a grown man, standing in my doorway with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "There you are, Mom," he said softly. Too softly. "I brought you something to eat. You didn't eat much yesterday." I hid the letter and the USB drive inside the pocket of my cardigan, my fingers trembling as they pressed the paper deeper into the fabric. My mind screamed Richard's words, "Do not trust Daniel." But my heart, oh, my foolish heart wanted to believe my son couldn't hurt me. He stepped into the room, holding a small paper bag from the diner on Main Street. The smell of bacon and pancakes filled the study, mixing with the leather and dust. He placed it on the desk like an offering. "Dad's partners called me early this morning," Daniel said casually, like he was talking about the weather. "They want to make sure everything's in order now that he's gone. Some shares, some agreements. It's complicated stuff, but I told them I'd handle it for you." My blood went cold. "They said they'll stop by later with papers for you to sign," he continued, pulling up Richard's chair and sitting down like it was his own throne. "I figured I'd explain it first so you're not overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. That word. He'd used it before, when he took over paying my bills online, when he said I didn't need to bother with bank statements. At the time, I thought he was helping. But now it felt like something darker. I forced my lips into a smile. "That's kind of you, Daniel." But your father never wanted me to sign anything without looking at it carefully. His jaw twitched. Just slightly. Mom, things are different now. We need to keep the family safe. Those men, they're powerful. If we play along, they'll make sure you're taken care of. If we don't, he paused, studying my face, it could get ugly. Ugly. Like Richard lying in the ground. Like the men in my house last night. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. I appreciate your help, Daniel, but I think I'll call our lawyer before I do anything. His eyes narrowed. He leaned back in Richard's chair, rocking slightly, like a man testing how far he could push before the wood cracked. Our lawyer, he repeated. Or Dad's lawyer. Because if it's Dad's, then he already belongs to them. You don't know how deep this goes, Mom. You don't know what Dad was into. The silence stretched between us. His face hardened. Don't sign anything until I say, he added firmly. Promise me. My heart pounded. Do not trust Daniel. I swallowed. Of course, Daniel. You're my son. He smiled again, but it wasn't the smile of my little boy chasing fireflies. It was the smile of a man who knew he had power and wasn't afraid to use it. When he left, I stayed seated in the study, staring at the diner bag he'd left behind. Bacon. Pancakes. Comfort food to soften the edges of manipulation. I didn't touch it. Instead, I pulled Richard's note from my pocket again and read it over and over. Find Evan Cole. The name was a lifeline in black ink. Someone my husband trusted when he trusted no one else. And then there was the line that burned into my mind. Trust Melissa. Do not trust Daniel. Melissa, my daughter-in-law. Daniel's wife. A woman I'd always thought was too quiet, too reserved. She rarely spoke up at family dinners, always letting Daniel dominate the conversation. But Richard believed in her? I had to find out why. That afternoon, Melissa called. Mom. Her voice was timid, almost shaking. Can I come by? Just us. Yes, I whispered before I could second-guess myself. An hour later she arrived, her blonde hair pulled into a neat bun, her eyes darting nervously over her shoulder as she stepped inside. She clutched her purse like it held her life. I don't have much time, she said quickly. Daniel thinks I'm at the store. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. Her hands trembled. I don't know how to say this, but I need to warn you. My breath caught. Warn me about what? About Daniel, she whispered, her voice breaking. He's not the man you think he is. Her confession poured out like water breaking through a dam. Daniel had been working with Richard's associates for months, maybe years. He was their bridge into the family. They promised him control, money, power, if he could convince me to sign the documents that shifted Richard's shares into their hands. Your husband tried to stop it, Melissa said, tears streaming down her face. But when he realized how far Daniel had gone, it was too late. He was going to cut them off. That's why, she trailed off, her hands covering her mouth. That's why what? I pressed, heart hammering. She lowered her hands, her eyes red. That's why your husband is dead. The room spun. My husband. My son. Together in a web of betrayal so thick I could barely breathe. Melissa, I whispered, clinging to the table. Why are you telling me this? Because Daniel doesn't know I found out, she said, voice shaking. And because Richard trusted me. He told me once, if anything ever happened, I should protect you. He said you were the only one who mattered. I stared at her. My daughter-in-law. The woman I barely thought knew me. And now she was the only one I could lean on. That night, when the house was quiet and Melissa had gone back home, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. Did you get the message? The voice asked. Did you find the note? Yes, I whispered. And I found out Daniel's involved. The voice sighed. Then you're running out of time. What do I do? I begged. Meet me tomorrow at the motel. Noon. Bring the USB. Don't let anyone know. Not even Melissa yet. If they find out you have it, they won't stop. They'll come for you. I clutched the phone to my ear, my whole body trembling. And then I heard it. A faint sound behind me. A creak on the stairs. Someone else was in the house. I turned, the phone slipping from my hand, clattering onto the floor. And at the top of the staircase, in the dim light, stood Daniel. His face was shadowed, but his voice was cold, sharp as broken glass. Who were you talking to, Mom? Daniel's voice slid down the stairs like a blade. Who were you talking to, Mom? I froze at the bottom, the phone still buzzing on the floor between us. My hand twitched like I might grab it, but his eyes, dark, sharp, unblinking, kept me pinned where I stood. Ruth. I lied, my throat dry. She was checking in on me. The corner of his mouth curved, but it wasn't a smile. It was something else. Something that made my stomach twist. Funny, he said slowly, descending the steps one at a time. Because Ruth called me half an hour ago asking if you'd made it home safe. Said she hadn't heard from you. The room shrank around me. The ticking of the grandfather clock thundered in my ears. My son, my own flesh and blood, was testing me. He reached the bottom step and crouched, scooping my phone off the floor. His thumb slid across the screen. He stared at it for a long moment, then lifted his eyes to mine. Unknown number, he muttered. You've been getting a lot of these, haven't you? My chest squeezed. Daniel, give me back my phone. Instead, he slipped it into his pocket. Mom, I'm trying to help you. These calls, these people, they're messing with your head. You've been through a lot. Dad's gone. You're vulnerable. The word stung. Vulnerable. As if being 84 erased my mind, my instincts, my years of survival. I'll take care of things, he continued, voice soothing now, practiced. All you need to do is trust me. When the partners come with the paperwork, sign it. It keeps everything simple. Richard's words screamed in my head. Do not trust Daniel. I forced a weak smile, nodding just enough to keep his suspicion from sharpening. All right, dear. If you think that's best. His eyes narrowed, searching my face, but after a moment he straightened, patting my shoulder with a touch that felt more like ownership than comfort. That's my mom. Always sensible. Then he left, whistling low as he walked out the door. I didn't breathe until the engine of his truck faded down the street. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark study with Richard's note in one hand and the USB drive in the other. The words blurred as tears welled. Trust Melissa. Do not trust Daniel. Melissa. The quiet one. The one Daniel always dismissed at dinners, who slipped into the background like wallpaper. I'd underestimated her. But could she handle the truth? If I told her what Richard had left me, I might be putting her in danger. The clock struck midnight. My chest tightened. Noon tomorrow. The motel. The stranger on the phone. Could I even make it that long? By morning, the house smelled faintly of Richard's cologne. Or maybe it was just memory tricking me. I packed a small handbag, my wallet, Bible, sweater, Richard's note, and the USB. I tucked them deep, beneath tissues and mints, like contraband. When Melissa called again mid-morning, her voice was hushed. Daniel left for a meeting. I can come by. Please do, I whispered. Within half an hour, she was there. She slipped into the kitchen, closing the door softly behind her. Her eyes flicked nervously toward the windows. Melissa, I said, clutching her hand, I need to ask you something. Can I trust you? She blinked, startled. Of course, Mom. Why? I hesitated, then pulled out the folded note. Her eyes widened as she read Richard's handwriting. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. He knew. He left this, I said. And something else. I pulled out the USB drive. Her fingers shook as she touched it. This is why they're after you, she said. Whatever's on here, it must prove everything. The partners, the shares, Daniel's betrayal. Her eyes filled with tears. Mom, you can't face this alone. We need to take it to the police. I shook my head. No. The police won't know who to trust. Richard said to find someone named Evan Cole. Do you know him? Melissa thought hard, then nodded slowly. Yes. I've heard Daniel mention that name. He was a junior partner, someone who disagreed with the others. Daniel said he was soft. That must be why Richard trusted him. My heart quickened. Evan. The voice on the phone? Melissa leaned closer, whispering fiercely. We have to meet him. Today. Before Daniel comes back. Noon. The motel sat like a skeleton at the edge of town, peeling paint, broken neon that flickered MTEL. Melissa drove, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. I sat beside her, clutching my bag to my chest. We parked near the laundry room, just as the voice instructed. The lot was nearly empty except for a rusted pickup and a silver sedan. Then I saw him. A man in his 40s, tall, dark-haired, wearing a simple jacket and jeans. His eyes scanned the lot, wary. When they landed on me, something softened in his face. Mrs. Holloway, he called, stepping closer. I nodded, clutching Richard's note tighter. I'm Evan Cole, he said, voice low. Richard told me if anything happened, I was to protect you, and to make sure his shares stayed in the family, not in their hands. My knees nearly buckled with relief. Then it was you calling me. Yes. I didn't want to scare you, but they've been circling since the funeral. Daniel most of all. His gaze flicked to Melissa. Does he know you're here? Melissa shook her head quickly. No. I told him I was running errands. Evan's jaw tightened. Good. Then we have a chance. He held out his hand. Do you have it? I hesitated. The USB felt hot in my pocket, heavy with the weight of trust and betrayal. Slowly, I handed it over. Evan slid it into his jacket. This is the key. With this, we can prove they orchestrated Richard's death. We can stop them from stealing everything he built. Hope flared in my chest. Small, fragile, but real. Then Melissa's eyes darted past him, her face draining of color. Mom, she whispered, gripping my arm. Look. I turned. At the edge of the lot, Daniel's truck pulled in, rumbling like a predator circling prey. His eyes locked on us instantly. His face, no smile now, no mask, just fury, raw and burning. And he stepped out of the truck holding a manila folder. Mom, he said loudly, his voice echoing off the motel walls. It's time to sign. The folder in Daniel's hand looked heavier than paper. It looked like a weapon. He slammed the truck door shut and strode across the cracked asphalt, his boots hitting the ground like hammers. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold and unflinching as they fixed on me. Mom, he said, voice sharp enough to cut glass, you've made this harder than it needed to be. Melissa stepped in front of me instinctively, her small frame rigid with defiance. Daniel, stop. She doesn't owe them anything. He shot her a look that could have frozen fire. Stay out of this, Melissa. This doesn't concern you. Yes, it does, she snapped. I'm your wife, Daniel. And I know exactly what you've been doing behind everyone's back. His nostrils flared. For a moment, I saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes, then it hardened into rage. You've been talking to her? He jerked his chin toward me. You've been feeding her lies. Evan Cole stepped forward then, his presence calm but commanding. It's over, Daniel. We have what we need. Walk away before you destroy yourself completely. Daniel barked out a humorless laugh, tossing the folder onto the hood of his truck. The wind caught the edges, lifting the papers just enough for me to see legal letterheads, bolded titles, and one line that made my stomach twist: transfer of voting rights. That USB drive doesn't change anything, Daniel said, his voice like gravel. Mom's signature does. And she's going to give it to me, today. I clutched my bag tighter, feeling the shape of Richard's note against my chest. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to stand straighter. No, Daniel. I won't sign anything. He froze, blinking at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. His lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. Mom, don't be foolish. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand enough, I whispered, though my voice cracked. Your father trusted me to protect what he built, and I won't let you throw it away for greed. His face darkened. Greed. He took a step closer, pointing at his chest. Do you have any idea how long I've been in his shadow? Dad never gave me control, never trusted me with the business. It was always about you. Mom will know best. Mom will keep things safe. His voice rose, bitter and sharp. And what about me? I've been waiting my whole life for this, and I won't let it slip away because you're too sentimental. Melissa's voice trembled as she spoke. This isn't about shadows, Daniel. It's about blood. You're selling your father's death for a paycheck. Daniel whipped toward her, eyes blazing. Shut up, he roared. You don't know what you're talking about. But her words had struck something raw in him. His hands shook as he grabbed the folder, yanking out a sheet of paper and thrusting it toward me. Sign it, Mom. Now. The motel parking lot fell silent except for the rustle of paper and the distant buzz of the flickering neon sign. Evan stepped between us. She's not signing a damn thing. Daniel's chest heaved, his fists clenched at his sides. For a moment, I thought he might strike Evan, or worse, me. But then, slowly, he lowered the paper, crumpling it in his grip. Fine, he spat. If she won't do it willingly, then we'll let the partners handle it their way. And trust me, Mom, you'll wish you had listened to me. He turned on his heel, stormed back to the truck, and threw the crumpled folder onto the passenger seat. Tires screeched against asphalt as he tore out of the lot, the roar of his engine fading into the distance. My knees buckled, and Melissa caught me just before I collapsed. My whole body shook as I clung to her. He's gone, she whispered, though her voice shook too. For now. Evan placed a hand on my shoulder. We don't have much time. If he's going to the partners, they'll know by tonight that you refused. They won't stop, Mrs. Holloway. They'll push harder. And Daniel, he's desperate enough to help them do it. I looked up at Evan, my breath uneven. Then what do we do? He glanced around the empty lot, lowering his voice. We need to open what's on that USB. That's our only leverage. But not here. They'll be watching. We need a safe place, somewhere private. Melissa nodded quickly. There's an old cabin near the lake. My parents used it before they moved south. Daniel doesn't know about it. We could go there. Evan's eyes lit up with cautious relief. Perfect. That's where we'll see what Richard left us. I gripped Melissa's hand, then Evan's, my voice trembling but steady enough to carry weight. If Richard trusted you both, then so do I. But I need to know one thing first, Evan. What's really on that drive? He hesitated, then met my gaze with a seriousness that made my stomach churn. Proof, he said simply. Proof that your husband didn't just suspect his partners of foul play. Proof that they killed him. The world tilted. My breath caught like a fish snagged on a line. Richard. Murdered. And my son. Standing with the men who did it. Before I could speak, the faint hum of an engine reached us again. Melissa turned, her face draining of color. Headlights swept across the motel lot. The black sedan. The same one that had been outside my house. 2 doors opened. 2 men in sharp suits stepped out, their smiles cold and deliberate. Well, one of them drawled, voice smooth as oil. Looks like we finally found our grieving widow. The men in suits moved with the same eerie calm I had seen at the funeral. Their shoes barely clicked against the cracked asphalt, yet every step felt like thunder in my chest. One was tall, lean, with silver hair combed back like polished steel. The other was shorter but broader, his smile a blade that never reached his eyes. Both wore the kind of expensive suits Richard never let me buy him, tailored tight to bodies that looked more like enforcers than businessmen. Mrs. Holloway, the silver-haired man said smoothly. You're a difficult woman to pin down. We've been patient, but patience runs out. Evan shifted, placing himself between me and them. His voice was even. She's not signing anything. The shorter man chuckled. Oh, Evan. Still playing the white knight, I see. You should have known better than to stand against us. Melissa's grip tightened on my arm. Her body trembled, but her voice, though quiet, was fierce. You killed him, didn't you? You killed Richard. The silver-haired man tilted his head. Killed is such an ugly word. Let's just say, Richard's time was up. He made choices, and choices have consequences. My knees nearly buckled. The world tilted. To hear it so plainly, so casually, was like a dagger to my chest. You monsters, I whispered, the tears stinging my eyes. He trusted you. Trust, the shorter man smirked, is just another word for leverage. Evan pulled something from his jacket, a phone, recording light blinking red. You just confessed. For the first time, their smiles faltered. The silver-haired man's eyes narrowed. His tone dropped into something colder, sharper. You think a recording will save you? Files can vanish. Phones can disappear. Accidents happen. He stepped closer. But signatures? They last forever. Daniel's truck roared into the lot again then, stopping hard, gravel spitting under his tires. He climbed out, his face flushed, fury written across it. Mom, he shouted. Enough of this. Just sign the papers and it all ends. Don't you see? They'll never stop unless you give them what they want. Daniel, don't. Melissa screamed. You're helping the men who killed your father. Daniel's jaw tightened. For a second, just a second, his eyes flickered with pain, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He shook his head. You don't understand. They promised me control. Power. This is my chance to finally be somebody. My heart broke in ways I didn't know it still could. Daniel, I whispered, tears sliding down my cheeks. You've always been somebody. You've always been my son. He looked away, as if the words burned too hot to face. The shorter man stepped forward, handing Daniel a pen and the manila folder. Let's stop the drama. Get her signature, and we're done here. Daniel swallowed, his hand trembling as he held out the paper toward me. Mom, please. Don't make this harder. Just sign. I stared at him, at the boy I once cradled in my arms, the boy who scraped his knee on his first bike ride, the boy who cried into my lap when his high school sweetheart broke his heart. Now here he was, a man, my son, standing on the wrong side of everything. No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I won't. The silver-haired man's smile faded completely. He nodded to the shorter one. Enough games. The shorter man reached into his jacket. My stomach dropped. Was it a gun? But before he could pull it free, flashing red and blue lights washed over the lot. Police sirens screamed, shattering the tense silence. The men cursed under their breath. Daniel's eyes went wide. Evan held his phone up higher, relief breaking across his face. Looks like you're out of time, he said. 2 squad cars screeched into the lot, doors flying open, deputies shouting commands. Hands where we can see them. The suited men froze, hands raised, their calm masks cracking under the flashing lights. Daniel backed away, shaking his head like a trapped animal. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. He turned to run, but an officer tackled him before he reached the truck. The folder and pen flew from his hands, scattering across the pavement. I clutched Melissa's arm, my whole body trembling as the officers swarmed, cuffing the men in suits, pinning Daniel to the ground. The silver-haired man glared at me as they dragged him toward a cruiser. His voice was low but venomous. This isn't over, Mrs. Holloway. The shares will never be yours. His words sent a chill deeper than the autumn wind. Hours later, after statements at the station and more questions than I could answer, Evan drove me and Melissa back to Ruth's house. I sank into her old floral couch, the exhaustion pressing down like 1,000 pounds. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. Melissa's eyes widened. Evan leaned close. Don't answer. But something in me needed to. My trembling hand lifted the phone. Hello. I whispered. The voice on the other end was different this time. Calm. Measured. Dangerous. You think you've won, the caller said. But Richard's binder is still missing. And without it, you have nothing. We'll find it. And when we do, not even the police will protect you. The line went dead. My heart thundered. Richard's note. The USB. The binder. They weren't finished with me. And if I didn't find that binder first, my children, my grandchildren, might pay the price. I closed my eyes, clutching the phone to my chest. Richard, I thought, I'll find what you left. I'll finish what you started. But as the shadows deepened outside Ruth's window, I couldn't shake the dread curling in my stomach. Because the men in suits weren't the only ones hunting for the binder. Daniel was, too. And he knew me better than anyone. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Richard's face. Not the gentle smile I remembered from our evenings on the porch, but his worried eyes the night he slipped that piece of paper under the bread box. He had known. He had seen this storm coming and tried to shield me from it. And now the storm was here, tearing through everything we built. The phone call echoed in my ears. The binder is still missing. Evan had said the USB was proof, but proof wasn't enough. The binder was the heart of it all. Without it, the police could be swayed, lawyers could argue, judges could hesitate. Paper spoke louder than voices, even the voices of widows. I sat on Ruth's couch, staring at the floral wallpaper, my hands clutching Richard's note. Trust Melissa. Do not trust Daniel. The words pressed against me like a weight. Melissa tiptoed into the living room just before dawn. Her hair was messy from sleep, her eyes heavy. She carried 2 mugs of tea, setting one in front of me. You haven't closed your eyes, she whispered. I shook my head. I can't. They're still out there. And the binder, it's the only thing keeping them from crushing us. Melissa hesitated, then sat beside me. Daniel was digging through Richard's study last month. He said he was looking for tax papers, but I think he was hunting for that binder. He didn't find it then. But he'll keep looking. Her words sent a chill down my spine. If he gets to it first, it's over. Evan came in from the porch then, the dawn light casting his face in pale gold. We need to move quickly. The police can hold those men for now, but without hard evidence, they'll be out soon. The binder has to be close. It's not the kind of thing Richard would leave unguarded. I stared at him.
Then where is it?
Evan crouched, his voice calm but insistent. Think, Mrs. Holloway. Richard trusted you. He left the USB for you. He taped that key behind a picture only you would notice. Where else would he hide something meant for your eyes? My mind spun. Memories flipped like pages in a book. Richard's habits, his secrets, his stubborn ways. Then it hit me. The cabin. Years ago, when the children were young, Richard had bought a small cabin near the lake. It was supposed to be a family retreat, but he always kept a locked trunk there in the attic. He told me it held old fishing gear, but he never once let anyone open it. Not even the children. I looked at Evan, my breath catching. The cabin. The attic trunk. His eyes sharpened. That's where it is. We didn't tell anyone. Not Ruth, not the police. If word got out, Daniel would be there first. Melissa drove again, her knuckles white on the steering wheel as we took the winding road to the lake. The morning fog hugged the ground, curling around the trees, making the world feel hushed, secret. The cabin sat where we'd left it. Weathered wood, shingles peeling, windows clouded with dust. My heart clenched as I stepped onto the porch. It smelled of pine and memory, of summers spent watching my children swim in the lake while Richard grilled hot dogs on the old fire pit. But the nostalgia soured quickly. Because this wasn't a family trip. This was a hunt. Inside, the air was stale, filled with dust motes that floated like tiny ghosts. Melissa coughed softly, covering her mouth. Evan led us up the creaking stairs to the attic. And there it was. The trunk. Still locked. Still waiting. My hands shook as I slid Richard's brass key into the lock. It turned with a metallic click. Inside, under a layer of old blankets, lay a thick leather binder. Its edges were worn, but the clasp still gleamed. My breath hitched as I lifted it. This was it, the very thing men had killed for. Evan flipped it open carefully. Inside were documents stamped with seals, signatures, agreements. And tucked into the back pocket, a handwritten ledger in Richard's familiar script. He scanned it quickly, his eyes widening. This is everything. Every deal. Every payoff. Every transfer they made to cover their tracks. Enough to bury them for good. Tears welled in my eyes. Richard, you clever, stubborn man. But before relief could settle, the crunch of gravel outside snapped us back to the present. Melissa stiffened, peeking through the attic window. Her face went pale. It's Daniel, she whispered.
He's here.
My stomach dropped. His truck pulled up fast, dust billowing behind it. He slammed the door shut, his face twisted in fury as he stormed toward the cabin. He must have followed us, Evan muttered, snapping the binder shut. Melissa grabbed my hand. Mom, what do we do? The door below rattled, then banged open. Daniel's voice bellowed through the cabin. I know you're here. And I know you've got it. His footsteps pounded the stairs. Each creak drew closer, louder, more furious. Evan stuffed the binder into my bag and whispered, "Stay behind me." The attic door flung open, slamming against the wall. Daniel stood there, chest heaving, eyes burning. His gaze dropped to my bag. He saw the bulge. He knew. "Give it to me, Mom," he snarled, his voice breaking between rage and desperation. "That binder belongs to me now." I clutched the bag tighter, my whole body trembling. "No, Daniel. It belongs to the truth." He lunged forward, his hand reaching. Evan shoved him back, the two men colliding hard against the attic wall. Melissa screamed. The cabin shook with the sound of their struggle. And then, Daniel's hand closed around a loose plank of wood, yanking it free. He raised it high, his face twisted with something I barely recognized.
Mom!
Melissa cried.
He's going to.
The plank in Daniel's hand looked more like a weapon than wood. His knuckles were white, his eyes wild, my son's eyes, but filled with something darker, almost unrecognizable.
Daniel, no.
I cried, my voice breaking.
Put it down.
He didn't. He swung. Evan caught the blow with his forearm, grunting as the wood splintered against him. Melissa screamed, pulling me back as the two men crashed against the attic wall. Dust rained down from the beams. Daniel shoved Evan hard, sending him sprawling into a stack of boxes. He raised the plank again, his chest heaving, his face twisted with rage. "You don't get it, Mom," he roared. "If I don't deliver that binder, they'll kill me too." The words sliced through me. Fear for him, anger at him, heartbreak over what he'd become. Every emotion battled inside me. "You're already killing yourself," I shouted. "And you're trying to take me with you." He hesitated, just for a breath, and Evan seized the moment. He lunged forward, tackling Daniel to the ground. The plank clattered away, sliding across the attic floor.
"Run, Mrs. Holloway,"
Evan shouted. "Get out of here. Take the binder." But I couldn't move. My legs rooted to the floor as I watched my son and Richard's last ally struggle, fists pounding, grunts echoing in the small attic. Melissa darted forward, grabbing the plank. She held it up, her hands shaking. "Daniel, stop," she cried. "Don't make me." Daniel froze, staring at her. His chest heaved, his face dripping sweat. "Melissa," he panted, "you don't understand. I'm doing this for us, for you, for our daughter. We'll be rich, untouchable." Her hands trembled harder. "I don't want money if it costs your soul." Evan shoved him back, pinning him with his knee. "He's not going to stop," he growled. "Not unless someone makes him." I stared at Daniel, my son pinned to the floor, his eyes wild but still my boy's. Memories flashed. His first smile, his little hands gripping my finger, his teenage tears after heartbreak. But over those memories, I saw Richard's handwriting. "Do not trust Daniel." Tears blurred my vision. My heart screamed to save him. But my husband's death, the phone calls, the break-ins, the truth, they all screamed louder. "Daniel," I whispered, clutching the bag with the binder to my chest. "I love you. But I won't let you destroy what your father died to protect." His eyes widened. "Mom, please, don't do this to me." Evan looked at me, waiting for my word. The attic was silent except for Daniel's ragged breathing. Dust floated in the sunbeam cutting through the small window. My fingers gripped the bag so tightly it hurt. Then, outside, the sound of another engine. Tires crunching gravel. Doors slamming. Voices. Melissa's face drained of color.
"They're here."
The partners. Evan cursed under his breath. He hauled Daniel up by the collar, shoving him against the wall. "We're out of time."
He turned to me, his eyes burning with urgency.
"Mrs. Holloway, choose now. Do we take him with us, or leave him?" I froze. My son's life, or the truth Richard left in my hands. Daniel's eyes locked on mine, desperate, wild, pleading. "Mom, please, don't let them take me." The footsteps below were already on the stairs. The cabin creaked with their weight. My hands shook. My heart tore in two. And I knew, whatever choice I made in the next breath would change everything forever. The stairs groaned under heavy footsteps. Dust sifted from the rafters with every creak. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out my own breath. Evan pressed his weight against Daniel, holding him pinned to the wall, but his eyes never left me. "Mrs. Holloway," he hissed, urgent but quiet. "Now. Do we take him or leave him?" Daniel writhed beneath Evan's grip, his face red, spit gathering at the corner of his mouth. "Mom! You can't let them take me. You're my mother. My son." The words twisted inside me. Below, the front door slammed open. A cold voice carried up the stairs. "Bring us the widow. And the binder. Or everyone in this cabin dies." Melissa clutched my arm so tightly it hurt. "We have to go now." Evan's hand closed around my elbow. He was ready to drag me if I hesitated. The bag with the binder thumped against my hip. The weight of it felt like Richard's hand, urging me to run, to survive, to finish what he started. But Daniel, his eyes locked on mine, desperate, wet, the eyes of a man drowning, reaching for his mother one last time. "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Don't leave me." My knees buckled. My chest tore in half. I leaned close, my face trembling inches from his. "You chose them, Daniel. Not me." For a heartbeat, I thought I saw the boy he used to be, the one who scraped his knees in the driveway, who asked me if monsters were real at bedtime. But then his face hardened, twisted into something sharp, cruel. "You'll regret this," he spat, his voice venom. "If you walk away, you're dead to me." My tears blurred everything. My throat burned as I forced the words out. "Then so be it." Evan pulled me toward the attic window. Melissa followed, her sobs muffled in her sleeve. Behind us, Daniel screamed. Not words, just a raw, furious howl that rattled the old boards. Evan shoved open the window. A ladder leaned against the cabin's side, weathered but sturdy. "Down. Now." Melissa climbed first, her hands shaking so badly she nearly slipped. I followed, the binder bag thumping against my hip, every step a prayer. Evan came last, closing the window behind him just as shadows filled the attic. We hit the ground running. Branches slapped against my arms as we tore through the woods, the lake glinting silver in the distance. Shouts erupted behind us. Heavy boots thundered across the porch. "They've gone out the back," a voice barked. Evan grabbed my arm, pulling me harder. "Keep moving." The forest swallowed us, branches clawing, roots snaring, the cold morning air burning in my lungs. My old body screamed at me to stop, but Richard's voice carried me forward. "Do not stop. Do not let them win." Behind us, a gunshot cracked. Bark exploded from a tree trunk inches from my head. I stumbled, falling hard to my knees. The binder bag slid into the dirt. "Mom!" Melissa screamed, reaching for me. Evan yanked me up, shoving the bag back into my arms. His eyes blazed with determination. "Don't let go of it. Not for anything." We burst through the last line of trees, the lake opening before us like salvation. Evan's old sedan was parked near the waterline, hidden under branches. He shoved us inside, jumping behind the wheel. Another shot rang out as he slammed the car into gear. The tires spun in the mud before catching, sending us flying down the dirt path. I twisted in my seat just in time to see figures spilling out of the woods, men in suits, shouting, pointing. And in the middle of them, Daniel. His face was pale, twisted in fury, his mouth moving in words I couldn't hear over the roar of the engine. Melissa clutched my hand, her tears hot against my skin. "Mom, he's with them now." "Really with them?" I couldn't answer. My chest felt hollow, like part of me had been left behind in that cabin. We drove for miles, the road winding through forest and fields until the cabin and the men were only ghosts behind us. Finally, Evan pulled into an abandoned barn, shutting off the engine. The silence was deafening. He turned to me, his face grim but resolute. That binder, it's the nail in their coffin. But we need to copy it, secure it. If we only have one, they'll do anything to destroy it. I clutched it tighter. Then let's copy it. Tonight. Melissa leaned forward, her face pale. And Daniel, what if he comes after us again? The words lodged in my throat. My son. My boy. My betrayer. I closed my eyes, whispering through the ache in my chest. Then he's no longer my son. The silence that followed was heavier than any gunshot. And in the dark of that barn, as we prepared to open Richard's binder, I knew one thing. The next time I saw Daniel, it wouldn't be as a son. It would be as an enemy. The barn smelled of dust and old hay, the air heavy with secrets that had been waiting for decades. My hands trembled as I laid the binder on the wooden table in front of us. It looked so ordinary, just leather and paper. Yet it was the reason my husband was dead. The reason my son had turned against me. The reason men in suits had stalked me through the night. Evan set up his laptop, his fingers moving quickly, slipping the USB into the port. Once this loads, we'll back it up onto cloud storage. Even if they destroy the binder, the files will survive. Melissa hovered near me, her hand clutching mine so tightly I could feel her pulse racing through her skin. Her eyes, red from tears, stayed fixed on the door. What if Daniel finds us? She whispered. The words pierced me like glass. What if he did? Would I be able to face him again after what I'd said at the cabin? Then so be it. The screen lit up with Richard's files. Numbers, names, deals, all laid bare. But it wasn't just business. Evan leaned closer, his brows furrowing as he scrolled. Oh my God, he muttered. This isn't just about shares. It's about fraud, laundering, payoffs to judges, politicians. It's a whole empire. Melissa gasped. And Daniel, he's tied to this now, isn't he? Evan's jaw tightened. Yes, if this goes public, he goes down with them. My chest twisted. My boy. My flesh and blood. His name inked alongside killers and thieves. Outside, the faint hum of engines reached us. Tires on gravel. Multiple. Evan's head snapped up. They've found us. Melissa rushed to the door, peeking through a crack in the wood. Her face drained of color. They're here. Daniel's with them. My body went cold. Figures stepped out of two black SUVs, their silhouettes sharp in the twilight. The partners. And in the middle, Daniel. His suit jacket hung open, his face pale but determined. He looked less like my son and more like one of them now. Voices boomed outside. Bring us the binder, Mrs. Holloway, and maybe we'll let you live. Evan shoved the laptop into his bag, snapping it shut. We can't fight them head-on, but we can expose them. Right now. He pulled out his phone, opening a Livestream app. Once we go live, everything they say, everything they do, it's out there. No way to bury it. My heart hammered. And if they kill us while it's streaming? Then the world sees it, Evan said simply. Melissa's hand shook as she touched my shoulder. Mom, it's the only way. The barn doors rattled as fists pounded. Last chance, one of the partners roared. Come out, or we burn it down. Daniel's voice followed, loud, almost desperate. Mom, don't make them do this. Just give me the binder. Please. Tears burned my eyes. Richard, I whispered under my breath. Guide me. And then I stood. My legs shook, but my voice was steady. Open the doors, Evan. Melissa gasped. Mom, no. But Evan understood. He lifted the latch. The heavy doors groaned open. The partners stood in the fading light, smirking. Daniel was in front of them, his face tight with fear and anger. "Mom," he said, reaching out a hand, "don't be stupid. You can end this now." I stepped forward, binder clutched to my chest. Evan lifted the phone higher, the red recording light glowing. "You want this," I said, my voice echoing through the barnyard. "Then let the world hear the truth." The partners exchanged sharp glances, realizing too late what Evan was doing. The silver-haired one snarled, lunging forward. "Stop her!" Daniel froze. His eyes flicked to the glowing phone, to the binder, to me. And in that heartbeat, something cracked in him. "Dad wanted this safe," I said, my voice breaking but strong. "He died for it. And I will too, if I must." The shorter partner drew a gun. Melissa screamed. But Daniel moved first. He shoved the man's arm upward, the shot firing harmlessly into the air. Chaos erupted, shouts, fists, bodies colliding. Evan streamed everything, his voice shouting into the camera, "These are the men who killed Richard Holloway. They're trying to silence his family." The world tilted. "My son, my betrayer, my boy," he fought them. Not for me, not fully, but because he knew the camera saw everything. He couldn't hide anymore. Police sirens wailed in the distance, louder, closer. The partners panicked. The gun clattered to the dirt. One man ran. Another shouted curses. Daniel stumbled back toward me, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. "Mom," he begged, "please, tell them I tried to stop it. Tell them I'm not like them." I stared at him, binder still in my hands, my heart a battlefield. Richard's note seared in my mind. "Do not trust Daniel." Melissa's hand pressed against my back. "Mom," she whispered, "choose." The red light on Evan's phone blinked, waiting. I looked at my son, blood on his lip, desperation in his eyes, and I knew. "I'll tell the truth," I said, my voice breaking. "Whatever that means." The sirens cut through the air as police cars swarmed the barnyard. Officers spilled out, guns drawn, shouting commands. The partners were dragged down, cuffed, shouting their innocence to deaf ears. And Daniel, my son, was caught between them and me, hands raised, eyes locked on mine. "Mom," he whispered one last time. But I couldn't hear him anymore, because the truth was louder. Weeks later, the binder was evidence in court. The USB, the recording, Evan's testimony, they sealed the fate of Richard's killers. And Daniel. He sat across from me in the courtroom, his wrists in chains. His eyes begged. Mine wept, but they did not yield. When the verdict was read, guilty, he slumped forward. And I broke all over again. But when I stepped outside into the cold air, I lifted my face to the sky. Richard's voice seemed to whisper through the breeze. "You did it, Margaret. You kept it safe." And though I had lost my son, I had saved the truth.